Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Dr. Wade. This show was created for and inspired by the thousands of patients I've served, so it's time for me to speak up and speak out on their behalf. With a wide range of experts, we bring you weekly insights, diving deep into topics of controversy to bust through the sugar coating that keeps you and your family stuck in the mainstream. Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. Today's episode is going to be about how we as patients or we as human beings have badges of honor. And these badges of honor aren't always conscious, and they're not always consciously created to the point where we realize what they are. So my question for you is, as you listen to this episode, ask yourself, what is your badge of honor? What do I use as a badge of honor? Where can I see that and then take it for what it is, and then obviously ultimately improve? And the key here is that this particular patient was struggling emotionally, physically, physiologically, but most importantly, missing all the progress in her life that she was working so diligently with, that she missed and felt isolated as though she was not succeeding and winning. And it all had to stem, and all did stem, from this belief set, this belief system that she had categorized and created as the means of success, and that anything outside of that level of success was a failure. So she saw this as failure because this badge was so much a part of her. She was going to conquer this. This badge of honor is, I am working so hard at this. Now, we all have some of that to some degree, and we feel many times isolated. So the uniqueness of this message might not seem so relevant, but I contend it's in there somewhere, because we as human beings have the tendency to do this as a byproduct of our effort, of the struggle we have, of the successes we have. And we can tend to label them, whether it be something that you're really succeeding at and it gets a label and a judgment and an ego and an egoic tag to it, or whether it's something you're not as successful at and you've given that an egoic tag as though you're less than. Or even though you might be less than so-and-so, you're still more than such and such. And these labels, these badges of honor, oftentimes hold us stuck in our real possibility and our real potential. Enjoy this episode. I would love any questions or feedback you have, or any shares. So this one is really, really common. Please don't feel isolated. I want you to hear that big message. Enjoy. Why do you eat healthy? I had a conversation with a patient the other day, and the patient, which is reality to many, the patient was working so hard to eat healthy, and it stemmed from fear. And the driving force of this fear was so powerful, because in the result of eating healthy, of feeling like she's doing the best thing for herself and for her family and her brood, trickled down to her grandkids, that even though she wasn't expecting a medal, she was expecting. And so my challenge for you, or the challenge for all of us, is to ask the question with our behavior and become conscious as to what we're actually doing and expecting. Let's break this down. If I'm worried or anxious about eating healthy, and everything in my life is driven or guided by that worry or that anxiety or that concern or that focus. Now, just note all those words, anxiety, worry, concern, or focus, has different weights and different vibrations, meaning I don't know what word it is for you, but how much energy is going into it, and what are your expectations? So I have friends and colleagues that don't think about food much, and they don't think so much about their diet, and they just go with the flow. They just eat what they eat, and they just leave it at that. Now, they might be a little overweight. They might be doing great with their weight. They might be physically fit. But my real question here is, what label And what expectation are you having as a result of something you're doing, such as eating healthy or taking supplements? So for this particular patient, she had this expectation that she should be healthy, and that was kind of like her badge, and that she is doing the right thing, so therefore she should have this. Well, this particular individual has a moderate to severe scoliosis. She has years of arthritic changes from structural asymmetry and from wear and tear on the body in an unbalanced manner. She has a genetic window and a genetic history, so she's got familial traits that actually lead to the expression of certain genes and genotypes. And she's got epigenetics, which is the environmental stress, and her worry she brings to the equation as to then how her body responds to everything, including the food she eats, including the thoughts and the experiences she's faced with. So the big picture is that if we eat a certain way and we have to expect that the outcome is health because we're eating better than someone else, then we're not truly only taking away from ourselves and distracting. The reality is it's not a badge, and there's no medals. There's no medals for eating healthy. The choice for eating healthy is a healthy choice for eating healthy. Starts with how you want to nourish your body and understanding food as medicine. And I don't think food is medicine. Food is food, and it can act as a healing agent. It can nourish, it can fuel the body. It can also harm the body given consuming foods and food in general when your body is in a stress state. We know that studies support the body reacts differently when in a stress state than it does when it's not. So keeping this about this particular patient and where it can apply to you is ask yourself the question, why do you eat healthy? Or why do you eat unhealthy? Maybe you're on the other side that says, I'm going to die anyway, so I might as well enjoy life eating what I want. Great. I don't have a judgment for you on that. It's not my place. My place is to help you along your path to be your best self. And maybe that's one of your weak links. Maybe it isn't. Maybe there's other weaker links. And so that's okay too. There's other questions that may go along with that. How's it working for you? How do you feel when you do it? Great. You get to answer those questions. And if it's not a big deal and you're holding steady, more power to you. But for this individual, I could see the stress and strain and anxiety and very disheartened look that she still struggles with health even though she eats well or eats better than she used to or eats healthfully. And so even though we can all improve in areas of eating and nutrition, I think it's important to let go of the expectation about what has to happen as a result of this behavior. Because if you hold steady that this expectation should equal this, like when I eat healthy, if I take supplements, if I invest money into this lifestyle, then I should have that. I think we're all guilty of that to some degree. But it deserves discussion so you can uncover where your motivations are and where your beliefs are and your belief sets and where your expectations lie. Because if your expectations are that eating healthy equals feeling great and looking great and not having pain, and you actually don't look as great as you used to, you might have some pain and discomfort or some arthritic changes or other health challenges. And so now you throw the baby out with the bathwater, figuratively speaking. Instead of evaluating your expectations and the reasons as to why you're doing this in the first place. If you value you, then the choices you make can become conscious. If you value you and understand and seek to understand yourself and your path and your best self, then you get to start to make those decisions that move you in that direction. And you can monitor those results. And in that system, you can let go of the expectation that you should be pain-free, or you should be ideal weight, or you should anything. Because your response to Formula X, Y, Z is different than someone else's response to Formula X, Y, Z for any number of variables. A few being genetics, epigenetics, your familial history, and your body's state where you're at currently. So that's why my wish for you is to not blanket or disguise your behaviors with an expectation linearly that this behavior, this eating healthy, this buying supplements, this taking supplements equals this. I truly expect results, but you got to understand where your results are and aren't, and what's the motivation to qualify those results. If the belief is you should be pain-free or you should have ideal weight, then step back a bit and ask the real question: where did I start? Where am I at? What do I have to recover? What am I having to rebuild? How much damage is done? How much can I restore? And this comes through the type of professional you seek. If you're involved with a mainstream allopathic medical model, then the theory behind arthritis and hip degeneration just is old age, period. You just have this, a non-autoimmune type of arthritis, which would just be osteoarthritis versus rheumatoid arthritis, which is autoimmune. Those are just examples. So you have this disease or this expression of degeneration, disc degeneration, degenerative joint disease, as a result of old age. That's one theory. It's not accurate. It's very general. It does not allow you to have a cause, and it does not allow you to have any change in it, because just old age, which you can't avoid, is causing it. And that's not necessarily true, but it is a belief set in the mainstream model. Conversely, osteoarthritis in certain areas of the body, and that's usually what it shows. It's not in every joint. It's not in all the extremities. It's not in always in both hips equally. It's not in both shoulders equally. It's not in every vertebra of the cervical spine or the lumbar spine or thoracic spine. It's in certain areas where what we call Wolff's Law, which is the areas of increased stress, increased irritation, increased resistance, creates more and more calcific changes as the body tries to replenish itself. The chronic low-grade inflammation becomes calcific. Now, there's many other causes along the lines of osteoarthritis. I'm not saying it's singular, but structure and alignment is one cause. Dietary intake is another. The ability of your metabolism and methylation is another, to be able to consume nutrition in the body and then actually homeostasis-wise, homeostatically, appropriate balance within the system. Sometimes it's an inability to process calcium or absorb calcium and magnesium based on other, both genetic, epigenetic, and dietary stressors or absorption qualities. So when we look at just having this expectation of certain symptoms, it's a game, or lack of symptoms, it's a game you can't win because it's based on a false expectation, which is then a false belief set. Like, if I do A plus B plus C, if I eat well, I sleep well, and I exercise, then I'll be healthy and pain-free. And I don't want to perpetuate the myth that that's what you're going to get. I will state that in your learning about what your body and how you respond to certain things and taking a step forward and moving toward the healthiest you, you have the opportunity to learn what works best for you, what reasonable expectations are, and what great expectations are. And actually, many of you discover what's far-reaching from what you actually expected. You're blown away by the results, the possibility that you didn't even think you could get. But it breaks my heart to see when we attach a stress and a behavior towards being healthy or towards actions that actually lead to health, because we put a label on what success is in that, instead of just understanding that the body is the temple and your self-love is self-care and self-nurturing. And it's respecting the nature of the body and the nature of aging and the nature of our changing over time. You can't escape it. So with this particular woman, it was important that we connected that dot for her, and she had this amazing light go on. And I got chills experiencing it, and it was fulfilling, and it was equally enlightening for me. It was enlightening from the standpoint that we all do this, that I've done this, that I'm a big reflection of that same belief system, that when I put my ducks in a row, A plus B plus C plus D, then that automatically is a linear outcome, that E is health and fit and balanced and well. And I believe I'd be perpetuating a myth if I continued to state that that linear formula is going to work the same for everyone. So where might this connect with where you are, what your expectations are? Maybe it's in the gym. Maybe it's with a family member. If you love them and support them, then you'll receive love back. And it'll be in this form that you expect, when actually their love language might be completely different. Or maybe it's in another relationship, or maybe it's at work, with how much effort you give and what you expect in return as a result of that effort, which might be acknowledgement, reward, remuneration, more money, more advancement. What is it you're attaching to your belief set that if I do this, then I get that, or then I receive this, or then it puts me here? This is important from the standpoint of your suffering and your continued evolvement. We get in our own way with our own limitations. And I work on this every day with respect to both showing up in my office and serving patients, as well as being conscious as to what is showing up. How is it showing up? How am I showing up? What am I attached to? Where am I serving, and where am I getting in the way? And this is where we allow things to unfold and we observe. And so I'm observing in this particular woman's experience that once she let go of the expectations, she can now freely choose to simply do what's right by her, which is self-honoring, because she understands it, believes it, and wants to set a great example for her family. That can be the outcome. She can realize, which we discussed, that the outcome is going to be the outcome. But if she doesn't do it, if she goes back to the old ways, then that outcome is also fairly predictable, because she can't unlearn what she knows, but she can unlearn belief sets. But as she unlearns the protocol, the technique, the understanding of how the body absorbs, why the systems kind of do what they do, and then she can participate on her own level, running her own experiment and letting go of the one condition that she's afraid of, which is the pain of not moving, of not being herself, of dying early, of dying in pain, of being incapable or unable to do certain things and certain actions or exercises. So when we address the fear, when we realize that that may or may not be the outcome, and some of it's out of her control, but what is in her control is she can slow that process down. She can support her family's health. She can feel good about what she does every day. And she can take her knowledge and put it into practice and grow. So my wish for you is ask that question, is self-discovery. What is it? Why do you eat healthy or not? And is it based on, if you step backwards and go to the previous belief set, what experiences have you had that turned you into the eating healthy or not eating healthy direction? Why do you either give it great merit or why do you give it zero merit and you're just going to live on the edge? What pain did you experience prior to that drove either one of those behaviors? And secondly, is it based on a truth, reality, or is it based on your perception and a story, or someone else's experience, or someone else's fear that was projected on you, or someone else's anxiety, or someone else's condition? And therein lies the power with which you can unfold that dogma and unfold that belief set and then start to reconnect with what's truly in your heart and what's truly what you want to see happen and what's truly possible for you. And the possibility could be greater than you even expect. So the last note with this woman, once she saw this, she realized all these other gifts that have been occurring around her continued suffering while expecting the one thing she drew up as the medal or the badge or the trophy for her behaviors wasn't the greatest benefit. It was how her family was responding to her. It was how she was influencing her son and her grandson and her husband. Once she started to see that big picture, she realized that her behaviors were influential more than she might have even wanted or realized, even though she was hoping that was the case, and that people that she loved were paying attention and did not also want to see her suffer. So the balance in the equation is letting go of what we think is the outcome and staying open to the bigger gifts and being present in this process so she's not suffering while choosing. Because my wish for you is to not have to suffer or be anxious or stressed about eating healthy. People state that sadly all the time. I don't want to be stressed about eating. Well, don't. Choose what you choose, understand the effects, and then choose what you choose again. And then you get to choose how you feel or how you don't feel. And paying attention is simply being present. It's not a worry or a fear. It just is, if you just stay attentive. Hopefully there's a nugget in there for you. Thank you for listening. Any questions or comments that come out of this or shares, I'd love to hear them. Appreciate you all. Have a great day. Thank you much for listening to this week's episode. I look forward to any feedback and or questions you might have. Direct them to our Facebook page, Frankly Speaking, Dr. Wade at Facebook. Okay, my fellow health warriors, it's time to head over to iTunes, franklyspeakingdrwade.com. There, you can rate, review, and subscribe, as well as share so more of our brothers and sisters can grow to realize their voice. Speaking up means you matter. So, get on it. This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views expressed are not medical advice and are not meant to replace the medical advice of your doctor. This podcast, including Dr. Wade Ananson and his guests, disclaim responsibility for any adverse effects you may experience from the specific use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse and accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about the guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for such services or products. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.